You have a medicine that will add 2 decades to life expectancy, but it costs too much. So it kind of takes 25 doses of medicine a day just to not starve, basically. And to think just because of like these medicines are $250,000 to $300,000.
We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather today, the Noongar Wadandi Mort. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging.
The following episode may contain material that can be difficult to listen to. We advise listener discretion.
Scratch the surface and everyone has a story. Welcome, Kaya, to the Wisdom of Women.
Today's guest is a mum who wants what every mum wants, to see her children live a long and happy life, healthy life, go grey, have wrinkles.
Welcome, Taryn Barrett. Now, you have 3 children of your own, must keep you very busy.
Yes, I have 3 boys, so they're aged between 7 and 14. So, yeah, very busy just running around after them. They seem to do every extracurricular activity under the sun, and I keep saying yes to more. So, that's pretty much what occupies my day mainly at the moment.
I think we know as mums too, Jo, don't we? You become just the eternal taxi service,
yeah.
don't you?
Yeah, definitely.
You have the schedule up on the fridge, do you, of where you've got to be and what's
yeah.
happening?
Yeah, and it's always chaos, but yeah, we get them there. So,
sporty boys or a bit more academically inclined, or
very, very different, like
nice.
Opposites. Yeah, so they all do very well at school, but just very, very unique. So our middle boy's very sporty. Yeah. Our eldest boy, he's into Rubik's cubes and Greek mythology and things like that.
I got into that right now.
I'm
so into
Greek
it.
That's interesting.
You're talking the language.
No, Rubik's cubes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Only you're the 3rd child. You're not supposed to be like
sorry.
that. I've got this theory that the first child always tends to be the one that has a little bit more of the serious countenance and tends to be the one that's a little bit more of the boss as well.
Yes.
Clearly, by age, but also by personality trait, I think.
Yeah, our middle one's the bossy one. He keeps us in line. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, you also have a great marriage to a man who's a funeral director. I find this interesting because what do you call yourself? You've got this great terminology.
Yeah, so my acronym is FLOF because I'm the First Lady of Funerals. So,
I like that.
So we came up with that when he became president of the Australian Funeral Directors Association. So it's not quite as glamorous as, the First Lady of the president, but, you take what you can get. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a title's a title.
That's right.
So that means that you must have some very interesting ideas or certainly learned knowledge around death and conversations and, the support, grief, etc. A lot more than the average person would have.
Yeah, definitely. I think, it wasn't anything that I was naturally equipped for. I'm a very emotional person and I couldn't work in the actual funerals themselves with Adrian because I'm just far too emotional. But yeah, just seeing how he approaches his work and just being around it all the time. I have become involved in some of the community education on grief and dying and it's a fascinating area because I think in Western society now where we do shy away from talking about death, we do shy away from talking about grief, but it's a really unhealthy way to be. So just encouraging people to, speak about end of life, and it is a part of life, and we educate children in schools about how life begins and how babies are made, but we don't talk to them about how life ends and all the feelings that are associated with grief. So I think mental health wise it's an area in our society where we do need more people to talk openly about it and have supports in place.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about that because we've had conversations with some of our guests, haven't we, over a period of weeks where that the difficult conversations to be had are the ones, as you say, Western culture doesn't really like to go there all that much, do they?
Yeah, even when people are dying, people don't talk to their family about what do you want in your funeral or what kind of, wishes you want on your last day, or, you know, things like that. But
Yeah.
the person is dying, but they're still scared to have that conversation. Whereas, you know, on my playlist, I have my funeral songs. Yeah, and I update them, and you know,
I
I'll
love that.
have
And you
wines
follow
with my
the
friends.
source.
And I'm like, what are you having for your exit? And, you know, we update each other's albums,
That's
and
awesome.
you know, we talk about different wishes, and you know, you can have. It's not just about funeral planning, but you can have whatever you want. You know, I want mine in a winery, and you know, I want it to be a party.
We had one of our guests, one of our ladies, turned around and said, "You only die once, make it a good one." And we just thought that resounded so true.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I know my mum died 6 months ago.
Condolences.
Yeah, thank you. And because of being part of the funeral family and also Irish background, we do talk about death a lot there. But, like, we knew what her wishes were, and her send off was something that we knew was exactly what she wanted. She'd, you know, been in the coffin selection room with me and gone, oh, I like that one, so I'd remembered that. And she wasn't dying; it was unexpected, so it was pretty cool to be able to give her that send off that we knew she wanted. With she had "Bat Out of Hell" as her exit song.
Oh, you're kidding me.
That's excellent.
She sounds like a very funky lady.
Yeah. So.
And you had the wake, I suppose, it's a party she would have loved to have been at.
Yeah, we had that at VAT too, and she loved her bubbles, so everyone had to have a glass of bubbles. So
That's beautiful.
Very special.
So you're very busy. You've got a background in communication. You're a journalist.
Yeah.
Do you still fit in professionally that aspect of it as well? Or you work that in clearly with the funeral business?
Yeah, I suppose I help a bit with the business a little bit. And I think that's always a part of you, having had that background. I don't work directly in that, but I suppose I use it throughout the things that I do, and helping now with cystic fibrosis and
let's have a conversation about cystic fibrosis. So going back, you've got two beautiful healthy boys, pregnant with your third.
Yeah.
Have your gorgeous little baby Connor.
Yeah.
Tell us what unfolds in sort of the few days after you have your precious newborn.
Yeah, so it was 2015 when we had Connor, and he came out and he just looked like the perfect little boy, and I was like, oh, we're so lucky, like 3 healthy boys, you know. Lots of people are always like, that's the main thing. But then, we were in the hospital. He seemed fine, seemed like a very content baby, and very alert. We brought him home, and then by about the week 3, I noticed, you know, he had digestive issues. He wasn't putting on weight. He was feeding constantly, sleeping a lot. So I thought, there is something not right here after a while. Like, he would wake up every hour, feed for about an hour, and sleep for an hour. Just didn't seem to have much energy or putting on weight. So I was concerned that there was something, but I didn't expect it to be anything serious. I thought, I wonder if he needs a little operation on his digestive system or something like that. But then my husband Adrian had just returned to work, and I got a call from Princess Margaret Hospital from the cystic fibrosis nurse up there. She said, I thought it was a breastfeeding survey or something to start off with, but then she said, his Guthrie heel prick test has come back, and it's positive for cystic fibrosis. So, that was just...
So that's completely left field, not clearly what you were expecting.
No, not at all, no. So, that was just a huge shock. Like, everything just goes kind of blank, and you think, there must be a mistake. I don't think that would be the case, because he just looked so perfect, and he still does look so perfect. But that is the disease. It's very, very invisible. So,
and is that around the age then that most children, well, these days, are diagnosed? It's specifically through the heel prick test? Yeah,
so the heel prick test in WA came in about 22 years ago to detect the most common genetic illnesses. And then, so most are diagnosed that way, about 80%. 20% are often born with a bowel blockage, which may require surgery, or what they picked up when they're first born. So some through scanning, but mainly it's about 80% are diagnosed through the heel prick test.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so you get this complete shocking diagnosis.
Yeah.
What happens from that point of view? what's the process? What do you do?
Yeah, so we went, she told us to come up to Perth, and so we could meet with the cystic fibrosis team up there to learn all about it. So
Is that straight away? Like,
yeah,
is it an
well,
emergency in
she
that
had
sense?
said it was like she was going to book us in for a few days, but I'm a little bit impatient. I'm like, no, I need to know. Like, can we do it tomorrow? Like,
Because you would be,
I need,
wouldn't you?
yeah, I need to know what
Yeah.
this is all about. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you know anything about cystic fibrosis prior?
I knew a little bit, but not a lot. No, I'd come across someone who was very, very ill, very young. So what I knew of it, it was
Bad.
yeah,
Pretty
horrendous
horrifying.
and a lot of suffering. So I had that child in my mind. Yeah, so it was just, of course, they say don't Google, but I Googled straight away, and
we all do, yeah.
you know, you have to really. I think I'm getting better at my Googling, going down good tracks.
Yeah, down the rabbit hole, isn't it?
Go down the good one, not the bad one.
But yeah,
Yeah.
just trying to work out, you know, what life was
Taryn,
going to be like, I
what-
suppose.
so you put the phone down. Like, what do you do? Did you like immediately call Adrian and say?
No, well, that day he'd just returned back to work, and there were 9 funerals on that day. So I just knew he was at a funeral all day, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that he was really busy, and you can't tell him that news when he's at someone else's funeral supporting them. So
Wow.
I was just I was shocked. So yeah, I tried to call a friend. But she didn't answer. I still tease her about that.
Where were you when I needed you?
Yeah, anyway, then I called my mum. My mum was at work and she came over, and my parents-in-law as well. So, and then got hold of Adrian, and then, he came home. And, so then, we went to Perth the next day. That 24 hours was the most horrendous time. Like, I just, because I didn't want to look at him. Like, I didn't want to bond with him in that 24 hours, because you just kind of, it sounds really awful to think, but you just think, I'm going to lose this child. Like, so
that was your immediate thoughts went quite dark in that sense, because you don't know much and you're thinking.
I knew that he, you know, most people reach adulthood, but I just thought he's not going to have a nice life. He's going to have a life of suffering. So I just, I had all these awful thoughts. And then 24 hours later, we sat down with the doctors and nurses, and they were just incredible, and they just, you know, told us the reality of it, and that there's these medications that are, you know, giving people with cystic fibrosis a great life. Of course, there's a lot of challenges, but there's so much hope. So, we came away from that thinking, we can do this, you know, it's not going to ruin. I was worried about my other boys and the impact on them.
So how did you explain to them at the ages they were? You know, was it age appropriate? Did you kind of tell them in a way they would understand?
Yeah, I suppose I can't really remember those. In that first 24 hours, they came to Perth with us, and obviously we were crying non-stop. So, we just, over time, we have explained it to them, and being in a funeral director family, I suppose they've never really had age-appropriate conversations. It's like
it just
we're very open about.
We say age-appropriate, but I guess it goes back to talking about death and dying. It's you do it because there is no age-appropriate time.
But there is
that.
the complication, although how the disease impacts the body.
Yeah.
You'd have to do that in a way that the little kids would understand.
And in that first 24 hours, when I was writing the list of questions for the doctor, and Oliver, who was 6 at the time, kind of looked over my shoulder and said, why do you think we might have it? Because I was worried, you know, because it's genetic, that, you know, he was very skinny at the time, and I was just concerned that maybe it hadn't been picked up on his heel prick test, and, you know, and he'd read that, and I was like, I'm not, you know, like, and then trying to cover my tracks. But the boys have been amazing with it. They've, they're not unaffected by cystic fibrosis, I don't think, but I think it's given them, it probably will make them more resilient and just, more compassionate humans, I hope.
And I was wondering if you'd better explain, like, symptoms of cystic fibrosis. Like, what happens when you have it?
Yeah, what it is. Cystic fibrosis is a genetic disease. So 1 in 25 people are carriers, which is very, very high. So Adrian and I had no idea we were carriers because it can skip through generations, so we didn't have a family history. So you need both parents to be carriers, and it is the most common life-threatening genetic disease in Australia. So it is something that I suppose for younger people considering having children, it wouldn't hurt to have a blood test and just see, what you carry. So it primarily affects the lungs and digestive system, but it does really impact the whole body because it's a problem with the transfer of salt and water through the cells. So the body becomes quite dehydrated, the cells become dehydrated, which makes a thick mucus. So that thick mucus is in the lungs and it traps bacteria, causes repeated infections and is very hard to clear. And then in the digestive system, it blocks the pancreas, so you can't really release enzymes to absorb food, so you need to take tablets. So it kind of takes 25 doses of medicine a day just to not starve, basically. So until he got that, when he was a baby, he was actually starving. So, and with men it causes infertility because it blocks the vas deferens. There's so many complications, sinus complications. There's a lot. So,
did you administer all the medication when he was a baby?
Yeah, so it was tricky. So after we got that education at the hospital, we were given these huge, big, like garbage bags of medication to take, which was, had to have a schedule, and, now it's just second nature. But he would have his Creon, which is the digestive enzymes, on apple puree. So he started on apple puree at 3 weeks of age with his enzymes. So he'd have that before he'd feed so that he could absorb his milk. So that was pretty incredible actually getting that, because he'd gone from a baby who, was starving, and then straight away he was able to digest his milk, and he slept for 3 hours like a normal baby, and started putting on weight. And
plumpy arms and legs.
So we're so lucky that we live in an age with these breakthroughs and the early intervention of the Guthrie test as well. Because it's given him a really good start.
What happens with the mucus build-up? So is that something that it's more about physiotherapy to break it up?
So he has twice daily chest physiotherapy. So when he was little, that was percussion, so the tapping on his chest, and there's 6 different positions. And then now he's doing it through a PEP mask and a nebulizer where he's breathing in salty water just to break up the mucus and thin it. Make
How many
his lungs
times a day
stronger.
does he do that?
Twice a day. Yeah, so morning and afternoon.
And is it worse when it's cold and damp for him, or?
He's not the cold doesn't affect him too much, no. There's actually environmental bugs that are kind of a worry for cystic fibrosis, so, and they're everywhere, so they're hard to avoid, like staph. He's had staph infections in his lung. Pseudomonas is one that accelerates damage, and he had that last year. And that can be, stagnant water, spas. Then, when you turn the shower on, that first spray of water that comes out of the shower. If taps haven't been turned on for a while, they need to be flushed. Yeah, those kind of things which are a bit tricky. Digging in soil, So it's a bit tricky when you've got a little child running around trying to stop them from...
Simple things, but then simple things, once you can kind of get a handle on if you're aware of what's
And also
happening.
knowing that you can't prevent everything, which is really hard to adjust to, but so we do our best. But
There's a lot that you do need to remember on a day-by-day basis, but as you say, it's second nature now.
Yeah, it is. So it became less of a burden as we got into the routine of it. And some days I do go, oh, this is a pain, but most of the time it's just part of the routine. And the same for him. He is so compliant.
It's all he's known.
Yeah. So, as a baby, obviously they go through their stages where they don't want physio. But he's been, really, really compliant and does what he needs to do.
Does he ever complain that why is it him and his brothers don't have to go through this? Or does he just accept?
No, he's probably not in his nature to be like that. And he's a bit of a show-off, so I think sometimes he likes the attention, really. So yeah, because like we have spoken about, you know, hopefully there'll be a cure and, you know, we'll get rid of cystic fibrosis, but he was a bit like, but he kind of sees it as part of his identity now, which a lot of the adults are also the same who have CF, because it is a big part of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah, so I still hope there's a cure.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, yeah.
God, yeah.
Yeah. So Oliver and Spencer, are they pretty hands-on as well? Do they help out with a bit?
Yeah,
you
they're
know?
pretty good boys. Yeah. Spencer is, he likes to get to school early, so he does not like when physio gets in the way or, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, they're very good boys.
Were you mindful of the impact when you do have a child that needs, you know, that extra attention? Mindful of thinking, is it like a balancing act with the other kids as well?
Yeah, definitely. That was something I was really, really concerned about, like from that call, you know, the impact on them. That's probably why I say yes every time they ask to do a new activity. I don't want their life, you know.
And they know that, and they're like,
yeah,
Mum's not going to say that.
Yep. So, we do our best, and we've had the grandparents around, so they haven't been starved for attention. So, we do our best to juggle it. Yeah.
And Connor is very cute.
Yeah,
He's got the most
cute.
amazing little curly hair, hasn't he?
Yeah. He's very spunky little boy and very wise for his age. So,
I love
lucky.
that. So, clearly as a CF mum, you must have been pretty driven after seeing what support's available or not available, what medicines are or are not available. At what point do you think you started to become a bit more of a, out there campaigning for what you wanted?
Initially, I thought I'm just going, because people, I suppose, thought I would advocate, you know, straight away when he was diagnosed, they were like, you'll be a great advocate. And I thought, no, some people say they're given to you for a reason, and I didn't like that, because I felt like, that's not his fault, you know.
Yeah.
So at first I thought, I'm not really going to get involved in any of that. I'm just going to be his mum and, you know, care for him the best that I can. But then I was made aware that there was this medicine coming, Orkambi, which was a big breakthrough medicine, which treats the underlying cause of CF. So that had been denied by the Pharmaceutical Benefits Advisory Committee. When I found out, I was just, devastated that was happening and that people with cystic fibrosis were missing out on this medicine that would extend their lives and, you know, give them many, many more years of life and quality life. So when I heard about that, I thought, well, someone has to speak out. And there's a big community of cystic fibrosis people who do speak out. So I just joined them, and I kind of already had a bit of a knowledge on how to get the message out. So it was a little bit easier for me to just, share our story and try and help.
So frustrated and cross.
It's been such a roller coaster. So it started, with Orkambi there, and then it's recently a newer version of Orkambi has come out, Trikafta, which is incredible. So that I'm hoping that Connor will grow old because of this medication, but then getting that through has been incredibly painful. People have died while waiting for it, and you get attached to people and you know their stories, and to think just because of these medicines are $250,000 to $300,000. So
is this the stumbling block why pharmaceutical benefits was not?
It was price inherently. Price, basically cost ratio, you know, the benefit compared to the cost, basically. So, you have a medicine that will add 2 decades to life expectancy, but it costs too much. You know, if it was $50,000 less, then maybe they would. And
it just seems horrific to be weighing up a person's life against the cost. So, is this something what pharmaceutical industry holding governments or people to ransom? Is that?
There was a bit of there was fault on both sides. There was, the pharmaceutical company, Vertex Pharmaceuticals, which they were asking too much and not maybe negotiating as well with the federal government and the body that funds medicines. So yeah, there was fault on both sides really during the process. There's so much red tape, and you know, if something gets knocked back, then it can take a few more months before they meet again. And you just think, when it's your child's life, how about we all just get in a room and negotiate, and don't leave that room until you have an outcome.
Sort it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how long did it take to get Orkambi available?
Orkambi was about 3 years, so it was a really, really long time. So Oliver and I flew over to Parliament House and went to a protest. Spencer and Adrian joined us to go to Sydney another time where we protest. There was so many media articles just getting the word out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it took that long. And for Connor, it wasn't as urgent because it wasn't actually for his age group straight away. But yeah, you just wanted it through for those older people with cystic fibrosis who needed it. So,
and is it a magic pill, so to speak, for all cystic fibrosis patients?
No, so it is for gene type. So Orkambi was for the most common gene type, which Connor is. So that's 50% of the CF population. So Connor ended up getting it just before kindy, and it's been wonderful for him. So he's still on that. And then Trikafta is for 90% of gene types.
Oh, wow.
And it's 3 to 5 times better than Orkambi.
Oh,
so it's a game changer.
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah, he'll be getting that in July. So, yeah, we can't wait to see what that does for him. And, yeah.
Literally life-changing.
Yeah, literally. So, you know, Connor's he's asked me about, you know, will I die from cystic fibrosis? Because, you know, he's been around when we've heard about other people in our community who have died of cystic fibrosis, and I can look him in the eyes and say that you may, but tangibly he has a very great chance of growing old because of this medication, and hopefully other breakthroughs will come in time for him as well. So, yeah, the median age of death is currently 36 for people with cystic fibrosis. Life expectancy for children is 47, but we're so hopeful that
I was going to say
it's going to keep going up.
That's pretty grim statistics.
It is,
and having to think about all that.
Yeah.
So you talk about Connor asking. That's a pretty straightforward question to be asking a mum.
Yeah.
How do you sit when you think about your hopes, your dreams for Connor?
Yeah. I just hope he doesn't suffer. Like, I just really want him to, you know, grow up and have all the same opportunities that his brothers have, and be able to have a career, and, you know, with the help of IVF, have a family one day, and you know, whatever he wants to do, I just want him to be able to do it and not be burdened by the disease. You know, if he has to still do his physio and take his medicines, so be it. But yeah, it's a bit scary when you see what some of the adults are going through. So I just hope that he never really truly has to feel that.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is based around research,
funding.
So I know that you formed the Southwest chapter of cystic fibrosis.
Yeah.
So you have a good group of people that meet and...
Yeah, so when Connor was a baby, about 3 minutes after I decided I wasn't going to do advocacy.
3 minutes, I like that. You gave yourself lots of time to consider it.
Yeah. I found an organisation in Perth which is completely volunteer run, and it was started by mums of children with cystic fibrosis 20 years ago, and they raise funds just for research, and it's all volunteer runs and no overheads. So I found that and I thought, this is the group that I want to support. So I got in contact, and they're just the most amazing bunch of women and some men, and so they do amazing work and hold a ball every year, and so I started a Southwest chapter down here, and the community's just been so supportive. So.
How important is that, having that community? They like-minded people who can understand and relate.
Yeah,
that must
huge.
Be so.
Yeah, really. Yeah, it's amazing. It's sad too, because you go along, you know, on the journeys with other people. But yeah, it's just amazing to have people who are so, I suppose, dedicated to the community and dedicated to research, because the researchers here in Australia are doing amazing work, but it is an area that's very underfunded.
Yeah.
So, Conquer Cystic Fibrosis is the biggest fundraiser in Australia. So, yeah.
Now, it looks like a magnificent ball that you put together for that. That's only happened just recently.
Yeah.
Frocked up, had a great time.
Yeah.
And I've seen some gorgeous vision, haven't we, of when the boys walked on stage and opened it.
Yeah.
How special was that for them? Were they nervous?
Yeah, so they opened, I think it was the 2017 ball. So, they were a bit nervous, but yeah, they did an amazing job. So, yeah, the ball is a very special night where everyone comes together, and this year we raised $145,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and with it all being volunteer run, it makes it pretty special. So
That's fabulous.
Yeah, you're right. And what about sort of state, federal government funding? Is that a constant slog? Are you?
That hasn't been an area that I've been too involved in. There is some funding to research through the federal government, and there is another wonderful organisation in Cystic Fibrosis WA that offers support services, and they have some state funding as well. So, they offer great support services for families.
Beautiful.
They do great work. And then for me, it was the research, because I kind of think you can have all the support services in the world, but if there's not the breakthroughs for your child to survive, then, that's the ultimate support.
It's
so
the crux of it all, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And education within the community, because, I mean, we know of cystic fibrosis, but I must admit I'm not in with all the finer actual details of what happens. So is that another thing as well, where the boys go to school, and is it about awareness for people?
It is, and it's really helpful for people to know, because most people are so helpful and so careful. They'll be like, oh, my child's got a little bit of a sniffle, so we won't come over, and things like that. That just means a lot that people care enough.
How was it during the pandemic? How was that? That must have been quite a worry for you.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, would have been anyway, but with 3 kids, but with Connor.
Yeah, that was pretty scary. The messaging, we would try and get those messages out there before the pandemic about sneezing in your elbow and washing your hands and things, and no one really takes all that much notice. But when the pandemic happened, people did start to live.
It was the cleanest anybody ever was.
And everybody was because we already had stocks of masks, because Connor has to wear them at clinic and things. So, it was like everybody else started living like families with CF and other chronic illnesses, in that heightened state of anxiety, basically. But it was pretty scary. And Adrian, being a funeral director too, he was kind of in the planning side of things with the health department on, how many deaths there were going to be. So he was like, you and the boys are going to go stay away from me. We thought it might be 6 months or so, but luckily we were lucky over here. So
we were very lucky.
Yeah. I did too much homeschooling for my liking, but
Well, that brings us to the point that you are studying, aren't you, to be a teacher?
Yeah, I don't know if I thought that through, really.
Obviously homeschooling your kids didn't put you off.
No, I am. I'm doing a Masters of Teaching in Early Childhood. Just slowly working my way through it. I'm almost halfway through.
Wow. Kudos to you.
But life keeps throwing curveballs, so we will see, won't we? It's hard to plan.
Wow.
Yeah, that is pretty absurd.
Yeah.
How much time does Connor spend in hospital or clinic on a sort of week, monthly, year-by basis? How does all that work for him? Yeah,
well, we've been very lucky, actually. A lot of people with cystic fibrosis kind of expect a year admission, which is 2 weeks for IV antibiotics. It's called a tune-up, which kind of, clears infections that might be in the lungs. So Connor only had his first one last year, so we were very, very lucky. He goes to clinic up in Perth every 3 months, and if there's a concern in the meantime, you can head up there.
And how long is that? if it goes?
Oh, it's just a half day kind
Okay.
of, yeah. So you meet with all the specialists and, just kind of get on track with physio and new medicines or any changes or concerns. So they're very amazing up there, the way that they know all the kids so well, and, you can email them or call them at any time if you're worried about something. So we're very, very lucky with the services that we have through the hospital.
Great.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah.
What about the impact of CF on things like sport?
Yeah, well, it's actually really good for them. So, at first that first few hours I was really concerned about it. And then my mum, she has been a teacher, so she knew more about it than me. She was like, no, I think there's some professional sports people with cystic fibrosis. And I was like, you sure? And then we looked up and, Nathan Charles, who was a rugby player, Australian rugby player, people can run marathons. Sport is really good physiotherapy. So once he gets older, when he's doing like really intensive 1 hour sport sessions, that can replace a physio session. So, sport is to be encouraged. So
Excellent.
Yeah.
And what about diet?
Yeah, the diet is another strange thing. So he has a high-fat, high-salt diet. So it's, most
You're not
people
talking
would
about
dream
hot
of.
chips every day, are we?
Basically, hot chips are a health food for him. So he starts the day with his Orkambi at the moment, which has to be absorbed with 12 grams of fat. So we give him a lint ball. So he starts the morning with a
That's
chocolate.
terrible.
Chocolate.
Yeah, and then
Well,
and at night time he has a
little
lint ball
bonus.
just before bed. So it's
He's the lint boy.
yeah. So it's a very, very strange diet, but
You should approach Lint about getting a sponsorship.
yeah, maybe.
Good
But
one.
the diet's a very strange part of it. But as the medicines are getting better, I think the diet will change a little bit with it, because in the past, 60 years ago, children wouldn't survive to school age because
It's just horrifying.
there
isn't it?
weren't enzymes to absorb their food, so they would just starve to death. Whereas now, with all the with the medicines and the medicines that are treating the underlying cause, there are people who are becoming overweight and obese with cystic fibrosis.
Wow.
So, whereas in the past they were just
Unheard of.
incredibly skinny. So,
Wow.
so we always have to monitor his height and weight, and just ideally you want him to be a little bit overweight. But he's going really well. So
That's excellent.
yeah.
Go.
But you say eat your chocolate before you have your strawberries.
So
That's
good.
really weird.
Well, you may as well have something, a bonus in there for him.
Oh,
Bless his
yeah.
heart.
And things like the other day, I gave him Powerade, and Spencer's like, why can't I have a Powerade? I'm like, you don't have CF, so you're not having one. So
There's got to be some bonuses.
there
here.
has to be, yeah.
Things.
So
Oh, that's funny.
But we've been very lucky. I think just the way that he is, just his personality has made it so much easier. But we got a tough little nugget. So yeah.
That's gorgeous.
That is
Yeah.
gorgeous. Yeah. So when you look sort of 5 years down the track, what year is Connor in now?
So he's year 2 now.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Oh, so he'll be starting high school in 5 years' time.
Oh dear, that's
Yeah, there we
about
go.
far ahead, but
Ooh.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll see what track after brings. It is doing remarkable things for people, so hopefully that continues. I mean, it's a very new medicine, so of course there's no long-term data, but the potential's there that he will be a lot healthier and we won't have to be as anxious, I hope. But
That anxiety, I imagine, is something you just learnt to live with, because that's just there always.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you just got to learn to keep it under wraps, I suppose. But it's hard because I am someone who likes to be organised and planned. But with CF, it's something where you have to just know that you can drop everything at any point, because his health. He can be very healthy right now, but tomorrow could be a different story.
Yeah.
So it can change it. There's no such thing as stable. It can change at any point. So I suppose just not letting that consume you. But I think I'm going to be good once he gets track after. I'm going to relax a little bit more.
Shoulders will drop a little bit.
Maybe. Yeah.
Do you spend much time away from Connor and the boys? Do you find that as a, medical mum in that terminology, you really like to be close.
Yeah, we have had good grandparent support. So, yeah, only like 2 nights away kind of thing. Yeah, because there is a lot to organise for when you're not there. But, yeah.
I'm sure he's absolutely spoiled. You've already said that, haven't you? Grandparents.
Yeah, probably is.
Yeah.
And why not?
That's all right.
Why
Yeah.
not? Yeah.
Deserves it.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Oh, that is very cute. Oh, I think that is I take my hat off to you. You guys just seem to have come together so beautifully as a family to, really work out how you're doing this. All of you, the boys together, and
just don't come and film us in the mornings when we're getting ready for school.
like most
Fighting
families
for
are, I think.
we'll be fighting for shelter. Oh yeah, no, I had a, and I just had one to get out of bed. And he's 14 and should be out of bed.
Yeah.
So no.
Yeah.
I take my hat off to him too. Yeah, I'd be there trying to steal the chocolate.
Yeah.
Throw one this way.
Yeah.
We really like a good quote. So do you have a quote that you would like to share with us?
Maybe, I suppose this kind of comes from my Irish grandparents and my mum. Live today because you could be dead tomorrow.
You can't get more practical than that.
Yes. It's not always great. Like sometimes it comes to my head after the 3rd wine when maybe I probably should be being more sensible, but then I think, no, you only live once.
Well, that's right. And spoken like a true floff.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not good for spending sometimes because you always buy the dress or the shoes or whatever because, you could be dead tomorrow, so you should have that dress, shouldn't you?
It's an excellent quote.
That justifies everything.
Yeah. I think people you can get swept up in worrying about the small stuff, but, just prioritising,
And clearly
things don't matter.
Clearly having a good sense of humour as well.
Yes, I do like to laugh, a bit sarcastic at times.
Yeah, we need more of that in our lives, don't we? A little bit of laughter.
Now, if you have been affected by any of the topics discussed in this conversation, we will have support links below and links for more show information and to subscribe.
Thank you, Taryn.
Yeah,
and always remember,
every day
you are remarkable.